In the depths of the ocean where the sun never shines lies a slumbering horror. A creature so vast and powerful that its very name inspires madness and despair. That creature is Cthulhu, and it is at the heart one of the most ambitious and acclaimed board games ever made.
Cthulhu Wars.
Cthulhu Wars falls into the unique category of a huge dudes on a map game, utilizing an action point economy system mixed with area control and asymmetric player powers. Right? Oh my god. Take all my money. It already did. Several times. The game is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and it features stunning artwork and miniatures that bring the Cthulhu mythos to life. Mind you, the Cthulhu mythos is one of the most underused themes in board gaming history. I mean, it doesn't even have its own Monopoly spin-off yet. Cthulhu Monopoly. Okay, they've even done that. I mean, I guess what took them so long? Players take on the role of one of many factions, each vying for control of the world and the awakening of their great old one. And unlike the majority of H.P. Lovecraft's mythos games, where you're playing on a cooperative environment, working with teammates as investigators, trying to gather clues and prevent destruction to the world from a selected scenario featuring a giant alien god, you are the big bad, and you simply want to beat the crap out of the other big bads in what feels like hungry space demons munching on the world. How deliciously monstery. Players will argue, threaten, and lie about their intentions in this highly interactive game. That's somewhat reminiscent of two weebs arguing over which waifu slaps harder, whilst everyone awkwardly stands in the corner of the room minding their own business, collectively discussing who's going to invade the poorly prepared lands from a bunch of these circling distracted nerds. But where did this game come from? Who's the mastermind behind these humongous miniatures that can barely fit on the board? And why is he such a babe? Sandy Petersen is a prolific game designer with a career that spans over 40 years, despite being a very handsome 19-year-old. He's best known for his work on the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which is considered to be one of the most influential horror RPGs ever made. Petersen has also worked on a variety of other games, including RuneQuest, Stormbringer, ElfQuest. Yes, I realize half of these sound made up. Ghostbusters, Sid Meier's Pirates, Civilization, Doom, Quake, Age of Empires, Cthulhu Wars, and a bunch of others I'm eagerly awaiting that are running insanely late. Petersen's game designs are known for their attention to detail, their thematic consistency, and their ability to create a sense of immersion for the players. He's also a master of creating suspense and horror, and his games often evoke a sense of dread and unease. The idea involving large chunks of plastic vomited on a board, Cthulhu Wars, came to game designer Sandy Petersen in the early 2000s. Petersen was a huge fan of the Cthulhu mythos, and he wanted to create a board game that would capture the epic scope and cosmic horror of Lovecraft's stories. I wanted to create a game that would allow players to experience the Cthulhu mythos in a way that no other game had before. I wanted to create a game that was both epic and intimate, where players could feel the weight of history and the madness of the outer gods. One of the things that sets Petersen apart from other game designers is his willingness to experiment. He's not afraid to try new things, and he's always looking for ways to push the boundaries of game design and wedge open my tight little wallet. His work has had a profound impact on the gaming industry, and he is considered to be one of the most important figures in the history of role-playing games and board games. He's also a highly respected and beloved figure in the gaming community. And, spoiler alert, he's one of my all-time favorite designers. So, Sandy, let me know if you need a few Amdirt stickers mailed to you so that you can melt them on the faces of every miniature you manufacture. Sorry to all the miniature painting brands that are about to go bust. I mean, look at that improvement. Petersen spent several years developing Cthulhu Wars, working with a team of talented artists and game designers. The game was originally planned for release in 2007, but due to a number of factors, it was delayed until 2018. During development, Petersen and his team faced a number of challenges. One of the biggest challenges was creating a game that was both faithful to the Cthulhu mythos and fun to play. Peterson also wanted to create a game that was accessible to players of all skill levels. I wanted to create a game that would appeal to both hardcore gamers and casual gamers alike. I wanted to create a game that was easy to learn but difficult to master. It's safe to say he ultimately achieved this, albeit slightly later than anticipated. The game was successfully funded, manufactured, and released, and received widespread acclaim and generated more FOMO than any game I can really think of. The first game raised over 1.4 million, and each subsequent reprint, with new stuff tipping the $1 million mark, with smaller Kickstarters capping it off with bonus content. It literally felt like an endless waterfall of Cthulhu Wars, and my shelves have never quite looked the same. Players choose one of many factions in the game, and then spend 10 to 15 minutes grabbing all of their components. You then have to select a map, which in the base game is good old Earth, although if you search far enough, you can find insane map variations such as Primeval, Yuggoth, Shagai, the Dreamlands, a frickin' library. I mean, whoever doesn't return their books on time gets lost in time and space, right? You follow the setup on your player board, and you can get playing. Each faction is incredibly asymmetric, and your player board will display this in many ways. You have a unique faction ability. Sometimes these are minor, other times they're just stupid, in a good way, like good stupid. Unique units with varying summoning costs, combat strengths, and abilities of their own. A bunch of unique goals, which when fulfilled become a requirement to win the game and gently steer you in a certain direction. And also a bunch of spellbooks, one of the simplest and most interesting features of the game. You see, when you achieve one of these little milestones, you take your faction's spellbook and you select one, anyone, to throw on your player board. They unlock new powers, unit abilities, and just drip feed you different ways you get to break the game. And you can collect them in any order, meaning you can explore the different ways the faction plays. This adds to the variety as you can choose your spellbooks based on the board state and other factions present and sleaze your way to victory. Each player will take turns performing actions, resulting in moving, building, attacking, summoning, casting abilities, kidnapping unprotected idiots, whilst all working towards the goal of earning the most doom points, which is the spicy way of saying victory points, which are then openly displayed on the track. To perform most of these actions, it utilizes a power track action economy system, which I first encountered in the Eric Lang Nordic hit Blood Rage, where on your turn you get to perform one action, and each action's cost fluctuates with varying degrees of power, which you then slowly reduce over the course of the game. It's this simple combination of actions and a transparent power meter that makes Cthulhu Wars so accessible. That nail-biting decision to spend your whole turn doing one thing could snowball or cripple you, depending on what you're cooking up and the level of douchebaggery of your opponents. Sharing a border with the enemy, spend your whole turn reinforcing your land, maybe staving off their aggression, or do you spend your whole turn moving a few units into another opponent's land, pissing a few people off in the process, and causing all eyes to focus on you? I always seem to do this. I highly recommend you avoid this terrible strategy. Tight action economy games are some of my favorite game mechanisms, especially in knife fights in a phone booth, like experiences like this. Finally, whenever you have enough power and meet any further requirements, you get to summon your creme de la creme, great old one to the board. And this is the moment everyone at the table dreads, as it instantly means business is about to pick up until they counter with their own great old one. And then it's kind of back to stalling city. The base game gets you 4 factions and the Earth map, which is more than enough to get your feet wet. But if you're normal, after a few games, you'll question what else this game can do. By adding an expansion faction, each sold separately, you can switch up the dynamic from game to game by combining different races to mix up the ebb and flow of each game. The base game gives you the Black Goat, the Crawling Chaos, the Yellow Sign, and of course Cthulhu, the Super Mario of Peterson Games. But there are also many bonus factions which have been released over the years, such as Opener of the Way, Sleeper, Windwalker, Chocho, the Ancients, Bubastis, Daemon Sultan, the Invasion, as well as the neutral faction Nazathoth. I mean, this, accompanied with larger versions of most of the maps, each sold separately. You can play this with up to 8 people, which I have done and probably won't do again. This is probably a group problem, and the game just took way too long, which, if I knew would take us half a day to play, I probably would have set up Twilight Imperium instead. Oh, and to make me question my sanity, there's a 9 to 11 player Earth map coming out, which I will receive at some stage, which will allow you to play up to 11 people, which just seems stupid. Not gonna lie though, I'm actually kind of tempted to try it when I get it. Then you have the neutral monsters and terrors, which when added to a game allow players to recruit these unique additions. And this can further make or break their faction's effectiveness and help swing some mid-game tempo your way. You have independent Elder Gods and independent Great Old Ones, which are super big scary units similar to what we just discussed, just bigger and badder. I'm sure I'm just skimming the surface of the amount of customization this game has to offer. It would be a massive struggle to get bored of the plethora of options presented in Cthulhu Wars, although if you prefer to grow crops in a field or terraform a crusty red planet, this game may not be for you. Cthulhu Wars was a game I purchased on a whim when I was browsing a game store in our city, and the two things that stood out to me at the time was the size of the miniatures. It had a handy little scale on the side of the box, which spoke to me. It worked. I don't really understand. It just worked. The second thing was the price. I spent over $300, that's Australian dollars, dollary dues, on this base game, only to bring it home and smash plastic with the boys. Okay, let's quickly hit up the price of this masterpiece. Yes, the game is expensive. And no, I don't think you need to go out and get it if you're on the fence. But if you're elbow deep in the hobby, as I am, and have a bit of spare cash to throw at something you love, you'll understand why even prices like these aren't really a big deal. That aside, it had exactly what I was looking for. Lightning fast gameplay, amazing table presence, and a lot of potential to be a mainstay in my group. And that's exactly what it became. It quickly became my favorite board game of all time. I loved the asymmetric factions, how everyone played with a similar rule structure, except the Black Goat can pump kids out like no tomorrow, reinforcing areas faster than the other factions, or the Crawling Chaos can break retreat rules, forcing post-battle fleeting units to go wherever they like. Or Poop Man, Yellow Sign, asking in between rounds whether or not he can defecate in your land. And not to worry, it doesn't really do anything or mean anything. He just really needs to poop everywhere for some reason. Oh, he won. There's also a Great Old One whose ability is to pass their turn. Literally does nothing. Because on your turn, you always have to perform a main action, and the Sleeper faction just uses his action to not perform an action, allowing them to save power points, only to then freely take 15 turns in a row once everyone else has passed and can no longer react. It's like being tied up in a killer's dungeon, only you get to watch as he starts visibly sharpening his torture tools and laughing menacingly. Although we worked out if you just go punch him in the face, all of a sudden he doesn't want to pass his action. Gaz, lethargy this. I love how battles finally allow me to show off my grade 3 maths as I slowly count 15 six-sided dice and gleefully throw them across the table to work out how many units my giant space crab destroyed. In our group, the crab is named Ryan. It just feels so good to ruin plans and man spread all over the map. And due to the power track being visible for all to see, that tension of predicting what exactly your opponent will do on their turn is just so mind-meltingly juicy. This is the game I go to when I don't want to spend too long planning out this giant epic strategy with a billion moving parts. No, this is the game I go to when I want to simultaneously upset 5 other people at a table and watch my chances of victory fly out the window after 2 rounds because it's fun. It's just so much fun. And despite the world giving me newer area control, dudes on a map games, nothing has dethroned Sandy Petersen's epic conquest of the cosmic tentacle-filled domination. This is Cthulhu Wars. Finally, I will say, due to the price, a lot of people didn't get the opportunity to play this magnificent game. But don't fret, Peterson Games released Cthulhu Wars Duel, which is a much smaller 1v1 version of the game with standees in place of the miniatures, which allows you to sample the main course and then watch as Mr. Peterson mysteriously manhandles your wallet and mysterious heavy packages start showing up at your door. Welcome to the cult. Cthulhu Wars is a game I will always have time for. It gives me everything I want in a game. Dice, powers, miniatures, and memories. And I only wished I could get it played more often. Sandy, you may not always get these games to us on time, but every time that I'm aware one is heading my way, it makes me oh so happy. Did you back Cthulhu Wars? Have you played it at 8? Have you managed to pull an out-of-nowhere victory? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining me on another look back. I've been Daddy, and remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.